The mayor and council agreed last week at the last minute to change our COVID update from this evening to an update from our Chief Brito, on the recent incidents in the city. So welcome, Chief Brito.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to talk to you personally for a few moments about some of the recent spates of violence that we've had in the city of Rockville. Before we get to one specific case we have, I think it's very, very important that we recognize, regardless of choices people make, we lost a life. And we can never forget that, regardless of those situations. I think it's very important. And I'm going to go right to the shooting that we had on February 17th at approximately 11:50 p.m. at Bradley and Fletcher. That ultimately resulted in a homicide. That particular case, which is still an open and active investigation, was closed by the Montgomery County Police Department's Major Crimes Division, who did an incredible job very quickly to bring those to justice and apprehend those to justice who perpetuated that murder, and they were charged with first-degree murder. It's also important for you to know operationally is that homicides, those type of issues are solely investigated and prosecuted through the Montgomery County Police Department Major Crimes Division. That particular case was very troubling. I was personally on the scene with our officers, along with First District officers from the Montgomery County Police Department. That was resulted in the arrest of two individuals, one 18 and one 23 years old. That was widely publicized, in which we shared on our social media platforms and throughout the community. That particular case, again, is still an open and active investigation, pending, its presentation in the court system in trial. Subsequently, last week, 6 days ago on March 1st, at approximately 3:45 p.m., we had a shooting in the 700 block of Monroe Street at the Fireside Apartments. Multiple structures were hit there. Fortunately, no one was injured. This particular case resulted in the response from RCPD, or Detective Bureau, Montgomery County officers, state police, and the sheriff's office, who were in the vicinity and actually, near the court system, as which they work every day. This is a very active and fluid investigation, and we are working diligently around the clock to bring those to justice that perpetuated that type of brazen activity and brazen shooting in our community. The other case stems from Rutgers Street back in December 21st, and that was at approximately 6:30 in the evening. We responded to calls for shots fired, and we did ultimately located a male victim who was shot and is recovering from his injuries, which are non-life threatening. The investigation there is still active and ongoing at this particular time. I also want to just say, I believe that many of the city of Rockville's community, whom I've communicated personally over the last few weeks, and whom I know very, very well, want to ensure that there's accountability for what's happening in our communities. The main word I hear from almost everybody is, are these people going to be held accountable? While I certainly agree that accountability is a cornerstone of our judicial system, I want to talk about, is that we are one important spoke in the criminal justice wheel, police, prosecutions, and corrections. Accountability must involve all aspects of the criminal justice system. We must have accountability in the criminal justice system to include our legislature if we're going to all move forward in unison in the right direction. But let me just talk a little bit about accountability. I'm not referring to mass incarcerations or past zero tolerance programs that have been put forward through many police departments locally, regionally, and nationally. But I'm talking about holding individuals who are endangering the lives of everyone in our community accountable. I'm talking about those individuals who brazenly use illegal firearms in our community. this year alone, we have recovered and made multiple arrests regarding unserialized, or what you would call, commonly called in the community now, ghost guns. Those individuals, two of those individuals that we were able to apprehend on multiple weapons charges. They were not locked up for ghost guns because that is not illegal at this particular time in the state of Maryland or federally. But we locked them up for other firearms violations of the annotated code of the state of Maryland. That's what, those particular cases. But those individuals, as soon as we went through the central processing unit in a very short order time, they were released back in our community. Another individual that we arrested last year for a weapons charge, that for multiple weapons charges and resisting an arrest and fighting our police officers, was ultimately arrested by the Montgomery County Police Major Crimes Division for significant criminal activity. This individual has a lengthy, to say the least, criminal record. He was responsible and charged for the bank robbery that we had on Nelson Street, amongst other crimes, not only locally, but throughout the Eastern Seaboard. But again, when we made the arrest of that individual for the weapons charge, and again, his record was known, he was released fairly quickly on a very small amount of bond. Sadly, serious crime has increased virtually everywhere. Over 17 of the largest cities in our country and municipalities have experienced records of their homicides and violent crime rates that they've never had before. Montgomery County is no exception. 2021 was one of the most violent years in the county's history. Those incidents of crime is a dramatic change for our community, as we have not experienced a homicide in almost 2 years. Regardless of the data, one act of violence is one too many. RCP has always and will continue to work diligently and tirelessly and selfishly with our partners, to include the Montgomery County Police Department, to solve crimes and arrest those responsible for any acts of violence or any crimes that we can prove in using our constitutional system. We, and I will certainly never accept any violence in our community. All the police officers of RCPD, again, work tirelessly each and every day to protect our community. The rise in violence locally in Montgomery County, regionally and nationally, is beyond alarming. It's in our faces each and every day. It's pretty rare for the city of Rockville, in those 3 incidents we talked about. We are one of the safest communities in Montgomery County, clearly. But most importantly, we will remain resolute and unwavering in protecting our community. We won't change our demeanor whatsoever. And we will always go towards protecting and making our community safe and resilient. So I want to give you a brief overview of those 3. Again, 2 of those are still active investigations and very, very fluid. And our detective bureau and our detectives are working tirelessly to work and bring closure and apprehend those individuals that perpetuated that violence. So, Mayor, I want to share that with you, and turn it back to you if you have any further questions or council does.
Super. Thank you so much, Chief, for the update and for bringing the calm and the professional response to us and to our community, and for your outreach on behalf of you and your team, meeting with the impacted neighborhoods and always ready to speak with anyone in the community who has questions or concerns. And I just want to thank you for being available to us this evening. Councilmember Ashton?
Thank you. I appreciate all the work that the Rockville City Police Department has been doing in collaboration with the county. And I also appreciate the neighborhoods who have come forward to express any concerns and who actually also help and support our community policing efforts. I did have, there's a couple quick questions. One is, as you know very, very well, on Friday there was and Thursday, some troubling what appeared to be phony, but still disconcerting chat room, social media messages that targeted particular students. And I know many of those families were rattled, and I just wanted to note that, Mayor and Council, immediately, tried to be as supportive as we could. I know RCPD has been in touch with our schools and also working to provide extra security. If you could speak to that just briefly, because I know some community members have even asked me what happened there, and how we're ensuring the safety of our students.
Sure, Councilmember Ashton, I appreciate that question. That threat, that specific, I believe it came through Omegle. It's spelled Omegle. We have been working with our law enforcement partners to deal with this recurring social media threat that is not specific to Rockville. It's all over the country. It's been in many jurisdictions up and down the East Coast and throughout this nation. That Omegle, it's an anonymous chat site, is being used to circulate an alarming message regarding the impending school shooting. They are identical, the ones that we received. The difference is that there are names that are posted there. But let me just give you a little bit of background. It's a free online chat service that allows users to socialize with others without the need to register. Very difficult to bring to justice those people that are using that service. And it randomly pairs one-on-one chat sessions to using names like you or stranger. Multiple people have visited this site and paired with a stranger who posts an alarming description of these specific attacks, which are identical. That attack is virtually the word for word identical that's been throughout the country. Oftentimes, the messages are followed up with students who attend that specific school. And the person receiving the message often takes a screenshot of the threat, and they may recirculate it through their own social media feed or a direct message to the parties to warn them, and that spreads the threat. In several cases, the named students have found to have public social media accounts that have been used to gain personal information of those individuals about their school and the names of their friends. It's very, very important to remind students about the importance of securing their personal information and limit what you display on social media. It's a lesson for all of us. Utilizing privacy settings and verifying the identity of followers before accepting them. But we believe this is not a specific random threat. It's a threat that has been replicated word for word throughout our community. And our detectives have been working again tirelessly on it. If we can identify an individual, which is difficult, through social media platforms and online behavior, we will certainly prefer charges.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Feinberg.
Thank you very much. First, thank you, Chief, for sharing your insights with us tonight. I have just two thoughts and questions for you. One, as there's been an uptick in crime, I ask you, how are your officers doing? And as we've all been concerned about the mental health of our greater community, of course, but also for your officers. So my first question is, has there been any intervention needed to help our officers get through this period? That's my first. And the second is, do you think it would be beneficial? I know there's an event at Twinbrook tomorrow, but to have one open to the entire community, as we've had, say, at the senior center, but open to the broader community, so that they can ask any questions that they'd like or get your insights moving forward.
Councilmember Feinberg, thank you for your questions. Let me take your first one first, is that we have great officers. And certainly, in my 34 years of experience, when I look at the violence that we see, and the violence that we see are things that in large our community does not see. Our officers, run to those issues and they experience a great deal and they see the worst that humans can do to one another. I've been on the scene of all those incidents. Our officers have handled it incredibly well and professionally, but we're always ready to provide that assistance to any of our officers that would need it. It's not like it was 30 some years ago where, police officers never talked about things that bothered them. Matter of fact, it was back, when I came on the job, it was frowned upon, to talk about your feelings about what you saw and what you felt and those type of issues. It is not now. It's something that, we covet. We want people to come forward and talk about it. So having those issues to talk about them are very, very important. And we have the resources to refer to should we need them. Your second question, we are always ready for a conversation at any given time. I talk and our officers talk and our officials talk to our community all the time. And we're always ready to have that broader conversation. And should we need it, should we will it, we will have it. And I'll be more than happy to have that conversation. I think it's those transparent conversations are incredibly useful. They provide insight, and we're more than willing to do that at any time in any venue on any date.
Thank you, and I'll see if my colleagues would also want something like that. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Dr. Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank my colleagues and Chief of Police for, I'll be quite honest, just helping me through this. This has been disconcerting in a way that nothing really has, as this is hit so close to home, this being the rise in gun violence that we commonly hear and read about throughout the country, but that it's here is beyond concerning. I thank you for your words of wisdom, caution, and look forward to working with you all to make our neighborhood safe for everybody. I applaud my colleagues for all the steps that we've taken so far to reduce some of the causes of violence, making sure that people can stay in their homes, keep the water on, providing after-school programs in a safe manner. And I look forward to having those discussions moving forward with regard to the budget to see how we can continue to provide some of those things, as well as, discussions about providing a mental health specialist to work with the police department, but also a police chief that's committed to reform and accountability with officers that are, my personal experience have done about the best that they can do in the situation. We look forward to supporting you and your efforts to again make these our neighborhoods safe for everybody. Thanks so much. That's all I have.
Councilmember Dr. Miles, just briefly, I appreciated our conversation as well as all of our council members and mayor that I've spoken to. I greatly appreciate that, and we will not relent. We will not relent to protect our community, but thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Priscilla.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Chief Brito, and my colleagues who have made wonderful comments and asked great questions. I cannot improve on that. However, I am certainly willing for a full-fledged town hall meeting. Anybody who wants to come, I think that's a great idea. And I just want to say I'm so happy that Chief Brito came to Rockville and has been incredibly proactive. Let's put it that way. He doesn't react, he proacts. So, I think the steps he and the department have taken over his tenure here have better prepared the department and the city for what's happening. I'll say that increase in crime is not just increase in violent crime. It's increase in senior targeted crime, for example. I recently had to intervene in a phone call my mother received, and somebody wanted her credit card number. I just happened to be there and stopped it, but people are out there. And so anyway, Chief, thank you very much. And thank you to my colleagues. And we'll discuss more of this during the budget, as Dr. Miles has indicated.
Thank you, Councilmember Priscilla. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Could we have a quick show of hands of those who support having a town hall, as Councilmember Feinberg suggested? Great, it's unanimous. So we'll work with PIO and the RCPD chief to get that going. That's terrific.
Madam Mayor, may I add one comment?
Sure.
Since we're moving in a positive direction with COVID, thankfully, after 2 years, if we could do it live, it'd be great, at a venue, in the future. If the mayor, if you and the council will it, we could certainly do it WebEx. It'd be nice to be live with people if we could.
Can I see a show of hands of those who would support in person? Okay, there's a majority. So, excuse me. Yes, that we can make that happen. Thanks, Chief. And I see one more question from Councilmember Ashton.
Yes, thank you. And I had talked to the chief potentially about doing something like this last week. And I think it's a great idea. I would like to see if there could be hybrid, because there may be people who cannot get to in person, but want to be able to ask questions. So I just wanted to flag that if that is a possibility, or at least to get people, an opportunity to submit questions in advance if that is not possible given the venue. The other quick question is, I know that we do our annual report. Do you want to share anything about that and how people when and how people can access that?
The 2021 annual report will be done shortly, and they can access it on our webpage and throughout the city, and the city's webpage. The annual report is something that we work very hard on, and they can access it on those two venues.
Thank you. And then my last question, though I agree with the comments that it's the enforcement is part of it. Also, we need to make sure that we're preventing crime as well, and that involves good quality school opportunities, that involves jobs and housing, etc. But there is also the issue of the ghost guns that you mentioned. I know this mayor and council have spoken out about that. I think it's important that our state legislator hear that there is a rise in ghost guns, particularly in our city. And as they move that through for consideration, just to give them some of those examples. So I wonder if possible, if we could share a letter to that effect to support what we've done in the past on that piece of legislation. It has gone through the Maryland state legislature in the past and has not made it. And so I'm hopeful this year is the year that they can get that work done, because we are seeing a rise in ghost guns making it into Maryland and our city. And right now it's not illegal. And we're seeing them among youth as well.
Councilman Rashid, a great question regarding ghost guns and the legality of those. Historically, legitimate and legal firearms ownership is constitutional, absolutely. Building firearms in homes has been going on for 200 years in this country. It's something, but what's happening now is the proliferation of these unserialized guns is an epidemic throughout, our community. Montgomery County has, I believe, recovered over 30. We've done 4. It's last year we had 0. So it's growing exponentially. So absolutely, I certainly support that.
And I understand, this is not about taking away constitutional rights. It's about these guns ending up in hands of our youth in particular, and also there's no background check.
They end up in people that under normal background processes or they're prohibited persons. They can't have them. We're not finding them on law-abiding citizens, at least largely.
Thank you very much, Chief, for giving us your time this evening and for all you're doing. We look forward to further conversations and further ways that we can help you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Council. I appreciate your support.
Thank you. Councilmember Ashton.
I just wanted to check in with my colleagues if you all agree that we should be notifying our legislators about this and these incidences and further support of the ghost gun legislation.
I think we did support ghost gun legislation and we sent a letter. So I think any other outreach that we do is good to do on that. But if we need another letter, let's bring it up under old.
Great.
Thank you.